I want to focus those verses that you just saw in that bumper. That's just not, we don't just do bumpers just to have a bumper up there, just to help us transition. It does help. But we put those there to kind of set the focus for what the series is that we're about to walk into. And so this series that we're going to start today is a generosity series. It's a generosity series. And I know, I just heard everybody's, like, in your brains, you're like, Jason, we just got done with Christmas. There's like no way, like I can't tithe Starbucks gift cards. To which I say, yes, you can. Like, that'd be fine. We'd love some Starbucks gift cards. No, this is my promise to you. In this generosity series, we are not going to talk about money. This is the first time I've ever preached a series like this. This is the first time I know of a church that says we're going to do generosity, and we're not talking about money. We are not going to spend time saying, hey, you got to tithe, you got to give more. These 4 weeks are going to be about something different. We're going to spend these 4 weeks talking about whole life generosity. We're going to spend these 4 weeks talking about how we are generous with our time, with our talent, with our influence, and with our possessions. How we can live a heart of generosity in this world. I'm really excited for it. I'm excited because I think that our church is a generous church. We got to see lots of examples of it this last month. I saw life groups taking gifts to families in need. I saw tons of gift cards given over here that we got to give to the Pearland Neighborhood Center. You guys, I'll share this, our Christmas offering, right? Our Christmas offering was fantastic. That ran from November 1 to December 31. November 1 to December 31, and we said, all right, we're going to set, here's CityView, we normally take in about $25,000 a month, give or take here or there. That's about the number. So November and December, that'd be about $50,000. So we said, let's set some audacious goal, something crazy. So we said $100,000. Let's see if we can get $100,000 for a Christmas offering. Let's see if that can happen. So we prayed through that, elders prayed through that, and we shared that with you. And as of last week, we were at 95% of that. So it was amazing. You guys were doing it great, 95%. I think that's what we shared. And CityView Church, I'm excited to share with you today that our Christmas offering was over $128,000. That's a clap. Yeah, that's amazing. God's grace activated your generosity, and I'm so thankful for that. $128,000 that's going to go towards missions, that's going to go towards our building fund, and going to help us get started off the year in a strong financial place. You guys have been so generous financially. We're so thankful for that. I think we have a generous church. One thing that we're going to start walking into, though, is what does that look like for the rest of our life? What does that look like, not just out of our pocketbooks, not just out of our checkbooks, but what is it like to have a generous life? You should give financially. That is a thing that should be part of it. Where your heart is, that's where your money goes. That's a thing. But it's also what you do with your time, and what you do with your influence, and what you do with your talent, and what you do with those possessions. If you have your Bibles, we'll be in Ephesians chapter 5 today. We are going to hop into 2 Corinthians 9 at some point as well. But I want to go over some interesting stats. I've been reading this book called The Paradox of Generosity. It's a book that a couple friends of mine, pastors, recommended. It's called The Paradox of Generosity. And in it, there were some amazing statistics that came up. Did you know that if you volunteer your time at all in a single year, if you volunteer your time at all in a single year, you will report your health to be excellent or very good 50% of the time. 50% of volunteers who give their time once a year, they report their health to be 50% better than those who didn't. That's amazing. So volunteer, there's part of the commercial. Here's the other thing. If you volunteered, the more hours you volunteer, the healthier you are. So if you volunteered 5 to 10 hours a week, then you are significantly healthier. Reports of obesity going down significantly, diabetes going down significantly. This is if you are actively engaged in volunteering. And then there's also this stat about your happiness. Your happiness, you will be 5 times happier by volunteering. 5 times. So sign up today to work with our kids. That's not where we're going today, but it would be a great thing for you to do. Volunteering is a wonderful thing, and not just in a church. I don't want to just make you think about this, but volunteering outside of a church, volunteering in our neighborhoods, really the whole life generosity of how could we be generous on our own streets? How could we be generous in our own neighborhoods? Here's another stat. Those who did that reported that they were in excellent health and extremely happy. If you were involved on a regular basis with someone in your neighborhood, helping someone down the street, if you were actively involved in bringing meals to someone, you found yourself to be extremely happy and very healthy. So, there you go. This is not a health, wealth, and prosperity gospel, though. I just want to share with you some findings from science. This isn't a Baptist organization. This isn't Lifeway. This isn't somebody who did this. This was an independent study that showed, hey, if you are volunteering, if you are actively donating your time to others, you're going to be healthier. You're going to be happier. Ephesians chapter 5 is where we're going to go today, and we're going to walk through a few verses about time. And then we're going to hop over to 2 Corinthians chapter 9. So we're going to go chapter 5, verse 15, and it says this. Look carefully then how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise, making the best use of the time, because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is. If you were to split Ephesians up into 2 halves, chapters 1 through 3 and chapters 4 through 6, what you'd see is chapters 1 through 3 is all about theology. It's going to build up who you are in Jesus, what you are in Jesus, the core of who you are and what you should be about. And if you get to chapter 4 and 5 and 6, you're going to see practical. It gets extremely practical about how we live in this world, how we act, how we treat one another. One of my favorite ones I quote to my kids all the time, be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another. Stop getting mad. Stop. All right, real talk here. Christmas break. They're off, right? They're off, so they're with each other more. Parents, do you feel the angst I feel? So there's a lot more of the how do we put it? Aggressive agitation. Anybody? Which is in our house. I think it will get worse as they get older, but usually starts with somebody na 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 and ends with punch in the face. Anybody? Anybody else there? That's us. All right. Good. Okay. Good. Let me be clear. Not Allie or I punching anybody in the face. I just want to be real. That's not happening. We tend to keep it together. If we don't, we go in the bedroom. We're like, then we come out and the Lord is gracious. I'm like, kid, you got to be thankful that mom and dad have a door in their room that can lock, or else you would be, never mind. Tangent. All right. It has been a struggle. It's a great struggle. We've had a lot of time in the car together, a lot of driving together. You know what's better than playing in the playroom together for a while where they have a lot of space is condensing that space. But it's been great. We've really enjoyed this time over Christmas, this extended time of break. But as we talk about this idea of time, I want to walk through a few principles here that we see in Ephesians 5. And then I want us to hop over to 2 Corinthians 9. So number 1, write this down. He's saying to look carefully at your time. Look carefully at your time. The verse in verse 15 just says this, look carefully then how you walk. Paul's talking to this church, and he's saying, hey, Ephesian believers, hey, Christians, look carefully then how you walk. Now, he's not talking about your physical walking around. Now, you should. You'll trip and fall. Don't do that. Especially if you have small kids and they got Legos. You're gonna hurt your feet. But he's talking specifically about how we walk in this life, how we spend our days, how we spend our weeks. He says, look carefully then how you walk. He's challenging Christians to say, don't just let your time go. Utilize it. A few years ago, I was challenged to do this, a time audit. Has anybody ever done a time audit before? Anybody? A few of you? Yeah. It was one of the most eye-opening, frustrating things that I've ever done. What a time audit is essentially, think about logging into your bank account, and then you can look at what you've spent, right? So it's essentially doing the same thing with your time. It's either looking at your calendar, if you're, habitual calendar like I am, then you can look back at what you did, or you just kind of start keeping track of what you do on a daily basis. How much time you spend on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, how much time you spend reading college football recruiting, how much time you spend playing video games, how much time you spend, and what happens is you typically become like, oh, I'm a little sickened by the way I'm using my time. How much time you spend watching football, how much time you spend in bed sleeping, how much time. So an audit of your time is this fantastic thing that's so frustrating. What Paul's calling them to is to say, hey, he doesn't have a form for them. It's not an Excel spreadsheet that Paul's saying, here it is, now do this. But he's saying, take a look at what you're doing. Take a look at how you're walking. Take a look at what's going on your day-to-day life. Look carefully at how you walk. Number 2, understand the nature of time. It says this, not as unwise, but as wise. So as you think about your days, you think about how you're walking, there is a wise way to spend your time, and there is an unwise way to spend your time. There is a wise way to go about planning your week and a poor way to go about planning your week. There's a good way to think about time. There's a bad way to think about time. Do you ever do a 5-minute warning with your kid? Do you do warnings with your kids? Like before bed specifically, this is what happens. We say, all right guys, 10 minutes till bed, 15 minutes till bed, and then the time runs. And we look at our watch and okay, here it is. Time is up, time to go to bed. And inevitably, here's what happens. Dad, it wasn't 10 minutes. Dad, it wasn't 5 minutes. That was not right. You're wrong, Dad, you're wrong. So we got smart. We started setting the Alexa. You guys have an Alexa? You should. This is helpful. We say, Alexa, set timer 5 minutes when it's bedtime. Then the 5-minute timer starts running, countdown. Then it has this really beautiful tone, this back and forth. It goes, dun, 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 dun. And I'm like, guys, it's bedtime. They're like, no, that's not right. You took control of the Alexa somehow. I'm like, no, you just don't have a proper understanding of how little time 5 minutes is, right? It reminds me of the scripture in James. Your life is a vapor that's here for a little while and then it vanishes away. It's here for a moment and then it's gone. In the vast scheme of eternity, this vast length of eternity, your life is a blip. 70 years, 80 years, 90 years. I just celebrated my 38th birthday yesterday. I don't know how I feel about that particularly. You can clap if you want. You can cry with me if you want. Whatever you want to do. It was a great day. But those days always make me think, like, how short is time? I remember just yesterday when Drew was born. I remember I remember when Blaze was born, when Judd was born. I remember the day we got married. I remember these things, and you look back, and we were married September 10th, 2005. That'll be 14 years this year. And that was just feels like an instant ago. Just feels like a second. I can remember the day. I can't remember anything that happened that day, but I remember the day, you know? Time just goes. And here I am 38, and I look back and I'm like, what have I done? Understand the nature of time. That it is a blip on the radar. Understand that as you are walking this life out, that you can use your time wisely or you can use your time unwisely. Number 3. We'll say it like this. We'll say you need to seize the use of your time. Not cease the use of your time, but seize it. Like grab, okay. I just realized that sounds very similar, and hopefully just read it on the screen. The verse says this, making the best use of your time because the days are evil. In other versions, that's called redeem your time. Maybe you've heard that, redeem the time for the days are evil. Maybe you've heard that in previous King James thing or NKJV thing. The word redeem is a word that was a marketplace word. Where in the marketplace, somebody would go to buy something, and they would go to buy all of something. And so the idea was make the best use of, redeem it, get it all. Perhaps today, if you're somebody who picks stocks or somebody who's thinking about major investments, then maybe you'd think of this as a strong buy. The idea like you got to go out there and you got to get it all because it's going fast and it's limited. Your time is limited. It says make the best use of it. Make the best use of it. What's the best use of it? Sometimes the best use of it is sleep. Sometimes the best use of it is getting good rest. Sometimes that is the best use of time, but not all the time. Sometimes the best use of it is spending time with friends because that energizes. Sometimes the best use of time is work, but not overwork. Sometimes the best use of time is volunteering. It says to seize the time, to take hold of all of it. Don't let that time just drift on you because it matters. Number 4. Actually, let me go back to this. Why do we need to seize the time? Just 5 quick words, because the days are evil. There's going to be all kinds of things that are coming after your time. And if you don't control your calendar, if you don't control your time, if you don't seize it as best you can, if you don't redeem it, make the best use of it, if you don't do that, you're going to drift. The days out there are evil. The things that we see in this world are evil. The things that go on in this world are evil. And if you aren't active in the way that you walk things out, you're going to drift into it. Now, number 4. Verse 17 says this, therefore do not be foolish. And so number 4, I love this word, is shun wasted time. I'm a big Office fan. I don't know if you like The Office. There was this one episode where they were shunning each other, and it was hilarious. Shun, unshun, shun, unshun. I've only got a couple people laughing, so most of you guys aren't Office fans. That's fine, whatever. I love it. And whenever I think of the word shun, I think of that. Like, put down this curtain and it says, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to drop this curtain down and I am not going to waste my time. I'm going to drop it down, shunned. I'm not going to be involved in it, not going to do it. Think about your time and how you're utilizing it, and don't waste it. One of my favorite books is a book by John Piper, and it's called Don't Waste Your Life. And there's lots of great stories, and there are lots of great scripture drawn out to tell us how we should utilize our life best for the glory of God. And that our life shouldn't be about us just drifting, but should have purpose. He shares this note about two ladies who were elderly and went on the mission field. And as they were on the mission field, their brakes went out. And they went over a cliff. And they passed away. And he said, is this a waste? Is this a wasted life? And the answer is no. Because they lived their life fully, completely, till the last breath for the glory of God. Shun wasted time. As you look at this year, the whole year is laid out for you. What are you going to do with these weeks that you have, with these months that you have, with this year that's in front of you? January comes and it's a time for kind of these new beginnings, these new opportunities for us to think through what is this year going to be like? How can I switch things? How can I change over this year? And so much of it is taking control of that time, that calendar, and saying, I'm not going to waste it. I'm not going to waste it. Shun wasted time. Number 5. Seek God's will with your time. That verse says, therefore do not be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is. See, God's got a will. He's got desires. And he says, understand what the will of the Lord is. What is God's will for your time? What does he want to come from your time? You're like, oh, this is where you're going to tell us that we need to come to church more. This is where you're going to tell us we got to be involved in life group. This is where you got to tell us we're going to volunteer more. Yes, I am going to say that. Do those things. Absolutely. But work wisely, work well. Play. Go out there and play. God is pleased with your play. And then also, there are some things that maybe you need to implement this year. Maybe it's time for you to set a scripture reading plan. You hear it talked about on a regular basis, but have you taken that step? Maybe it's time to have a prayer journal. One of my goals this year is that I'd have 250 entries in my prayer journal. I've always struggled with this deal. I'm a pastor, and I pray, and I'll pray in my car, and I'll pray in my office, and I'll pray in in our closet. I'll pray, but sometimes I don't write it down, so I don't get to see the specific thing I prayed for specifically answered. Does that make sense? And that is a beautiful thing, to see the thing that you're praying for answered. And so that's one of my goals this year. Maybe you'd like to take that goal as well, or maybe it's time for you to figure out how you share the gospel. How do I take this step and share the gospel, the good news of who Jesus is and what he's done? We had a workshop last month. Nate did a great job teaching that out, and we're going to do that on a regular basis so that we can help our people share the gospel. And it's not just a one-time deal, so keep coming back as those things are offered to kind of hone the skill and be challenged in who you're going to share the gospel with. We're a church that talks about it, but we don't want you. Here's the thing, talk is cheap, right? We want to teach you how. So I'm going to say this, that you should seek God's will with your time. Take your time, look at your time, and then seek what God would have from it. Maybe before everything else goes on your calendar, maybe it's time to spend some time in prayer before you set that calendar. And I promise this. We're going to go to 2 Corinthians chapter 9. It'll be on the screen. It's Paul. He's writing to the Corinthian church again. He says this, the point is this: whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly. And whoever sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. Each one must give as he has decided in his heart, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. He loves a cheerful giver. He loves it in terms of finances, but that's not what all that this is about. In fact, I want to show you a video of some people in our church who I find to be some of the most cheerful givers when it comes to their time. Here it is.
So we balance our time. We're very type A personalities, both of us are. But we both work full time, and I think it's, we've just learned over the time, you've learned what works and what doesn't. And so he's a huge morning person, I'm not. So he knows in the morning or maybe I forced him to do this,
No.
but he gets the kids up and gets them ready.
Yeah.
Most of the time I help where I need to, but
I don't have to put on makeup, so I'm good.
we know Sundays are dedicated to church. Like that is what we want for our family.
So we live in Friendswood, so the commute to church is about a good 25, 30 minutes. We've set our schedules, that way we could still be able to get there early if we serve. So if we have to get there earlier, we know how to manage it also.
We know that we need to leave by 8:30 so
Yeah.
that we can stop and get the kids donuts on the way to church and get to church by 9 o'clock. The kids know what their routine is on a Sunday morning to get up and get dressed, and there's no TV, there's no nothing, because we are not early risers. So typically we don't wake up on Sundays until 7:30. So we have an hour to get up and dressed and out of the house and get our donuts and get to church. We know that when we're there, we're called to do more. So we're there. If somebody needs help in the preschool area, I'm willing to serve, or he'll help with the crosstown area. And we're always willing to make sure that everybody's settled before we walk to church ourselves.
She does the front desk twice a month, and I help out with, is it Crosstown? 2 times out of the month. Also, I alternate with Mr. Travis. And that's just a great feeling. I'm a big kid, so I love helping with the kids anyways. So, and I'll give them a hard time.
He loves to be competitive with
Yeah,
them.
so there's nothing wrong with that. It's fun. I make it fun for them. I make it where they want to keep coming back every Sunday and where they're still able to learn in a fun way. It's just not a monotone kind of church Sunday going back there. They're going to remember it. They're going to have fun. It's going to be memorable, and we want them to enjoy that and keep coming back.
We don't see it as a timing thing. We see it as the ability to serve as we're called to do. And so that's what our typical Sunday mornings look like, and our kids know what it means to get up and do what we have to do a part of the Lord's work.
If you have kids back there in Crosstown, Mr. Ricky we affectionately refer to him as the kid whisperer. He's like the little Pied Piper. You can get him to do anything. I don't know how, but he does. He's magic. So if you have trouble at your home with your kids, call Ricky. He'll tell you what to do. I don't know why. They just like, oh, okay, we'll do whatever Rick says. They're amazing. Ricky and Araceli have been with us from the beginning. They were with us before Alex was born. That's their youngest. They've been here from the founding. They were some of our charter members who came over to help start this church. And I haven't seen, many of our families are super generous with their time, but the Torreses kind of excel. They do that on Sunday mornings, but they are actively involved in people's lives throughout the week. Araceli is one of the greatest encouragers of young mothers in our church. She is constantly helping moms think through some things. I am so blessed by both of them. They really exemplify what this verse is talking about when it comes to the generosity of our time. And really, write this down as we look at number 6, is that you would invest your time. Like when we're talking about this idea of what do we do with time, or this kind of agrarian society here, as Paul's writing to, that says sow, it's really the idea of investing. What are you doing with your time? How are you investing your time? How are you putting it to work? Not just using it, not just utilizing it, but that you'd invest it. That you'd put it in and you'd put it to work and you'd see that time grow. My kids come back all the time telling me what Mr. Ricky talked about on Sunday morning. He affectionately refers to himself as the great kid director of our children's choir. He's the lyrics master or something. They've sown into kids, and they're going to see some fruit from it. My challenge for you today, well, I have a couple, is that you'd think through how you can invest your time. How are you investing your time for the work of the gospel? How are you investing your time for the glory of God?